So I had to go to Paramus on Friday when I went to the doctor with my leg. I could not believe how much traffic there is again.
Really?
Okay,
Yeah.
we're live. We are live.
Okay. So to be continued. Sorry, everybody. We had a technical problem.
So Rich has joined me in my office.
Hey, everybody. This is how we're going to finish this out.
All right.
All right, so everybody can hear us both okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So just, I think where I left off is if we took out just the $200,000 out of this year's budget for the fire apparatus, it would reduce our impact to the average resident from $107 down to $69, and would get us down to a rate of 2.13%. So the things and items that you've already talked about could get us down to a 2% number if that's what you're, driving for, what you want us to bring the budget in at.
So we need to get how much more down?
How does that affect us going forward?
It affects you going forward. If that $200,000 has to go back into the budget next year or in a future year, in that year, you're going to be adding, 1.5% increase on top of whatever other increases are being driven by the rest of your regular budget stuff. So what you're taking is
somewhere else? Can we find it somewhere else and not just in the fire truck? What if we spread it out over a couple of things?
So the challenge there, Mayor, is if you don't have an actionable reduction, which means that like with utilities and telephone, we're taking an action to reduce the cost. If you don't take a specific action to reduce the cost and you just reduce the budget, then, all you're doing is pushing that change down the road when that cost has to either be replaced by less surplus or because you have to incur the cost of the fire truck 2 years from now. So,
and what happens if you just reduce it by
right? But David, you're not going to have every year where you're going to have a year like John was talking about with COVID-19, and a year like this year where we're talking about the tax assessment and the utility payment. The pensions went up a lot. I mean, we looked at that. Eric said, okay, but we can't do anything about that. But to me, this seems like it's a year where we're getting hit with utility support and the reassessment at the same time.
Yeah, this is the big year for the reassessment charge. Next year, it's going to drop to 50,000.
So if we put it back in the budget in a future year, if it did go back in a budget, say for $100,000, whatever, like we're talking, if we take it from 200 to 100, we would be doing it potentially in a year where we wouldn't have those two things. And we know for the reassessment, it's going to be 50,000 going forward. And you said there is a chance that the 100,000 that you already budget might be able to cover it, although that's not a guarantee and you're not.
What happens if we move it from 200,000 to 100,000?
It's half. It gets you below 3%, around 2 3/4, if that's the reduction. And Grant, when Rich and I are looking at the next 4 years, we're taking a pretty detailed look at the next 4 years. We're already including in that the fact there's no reval in next year's budget, that there isn't a big increase in next year's pension. We got a big break this year from breakage on the police department. We're not going to get that every year. So, that other side of all that money we didn't have to spend in salary is going to be in the next 2 years. So when we're looking at this budget and the impact is if it's 2% this year, you're going to see a 3.5% at some point in the next 2.
If
you don't reduce spend.
And David and Rich, you guys know, because we went over this already, what jumped out at me immediately the first time I ever looked at this was, and I wanted more information, was replace chief's vehicle. It's under fire department equipment improvements. And I don't know, Eric, you're on the fire department. If you could talk a little more about that, but that jumped out at me as something that wasn't necessary.
I think what we need to do is take a look at that. And Rich, maybe have the borough. I thought you were gonna, let me backtrack here. I thought that you guys were gonna take a look back on that and revisit that and see if it was necessary, Rich. Is that true?
That's what my notes indicate.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
Yeah.
So let that happen, Grant. This way they can take a look at that real quick.
And another question on the 2022 annual road repair program. So what we'd be putting in this budget is funding for the next year. How did we come to that number on that line?
It's based on an estimate of what we think that we need or nearly need to try to keep up with maintaining our roads on an ongoing basis. It's actually, honestly, it's probably a little light. It kind of assumes a longer period of life for the roads than what the engineer is projecting based on the current pavement mixes. But again, we also realize that we're constrained a little bit due to the economic situation and the tax levy increase. But that's roughly in line with prior years a lot.
So do you have a plan as to which roads are going to get addressed that year already?
No, we have a ranked list, and each year DPW and engineering come up with a final list based on a reassessment every year. But we know basically from a budgetary standpoint, if we have 60 miles of roads and we need to pave roughly 3 miles or so, you put a relative projected cost per mile on that, and you kind of come up with the number that you're going to need for the total mileage that you're looking to do, even though you don't know exactly what roads may be included in that.
Did we notice that the roads were less worn because there was less traffic this year? Or did they pretty much deteriorate at the same rate?
I don't know that we were able to tell anything here in terms of one year on that. Most of the roads that we're proposing to repave in this year's program that we'll be undertaking, we're roughly picking up where we left off, a couple of minor adjustments here and there. But for the most part, the priority list more or less stayed the same. So I can't say at this point that it's really had any impact on our thinking or on our road selection. And currently, right now, roads are I'm sorry?
We had a more severe winter, which may impact the roads adversely.
Agree.
Yeah.
You got the salt, you got the
Freezing.
you got the shovels.
Yeah,
Constantly
it's hard to say.
The other item there is roads are currently in your debt plan. So roads reduction in terms of any expense or increase in any expense there is not a current year budget impact. It's a future year budget impact.
Right.
Well, which we need to think about, because if we did reduce, say, the fire truck by 100,000, need to put it back. If we were able to reduce that, then maybe in the same year it came back, it would impact that same year's budget, which may be able to level itself off. So we catch it if we can time it correctly.
And then we have the other, if we can save the $45,000 from the reserve for non-paid taxes. That has to be looked at as well.
And we have that as a note too, to look at that.
And if we had both $100,000 and the $45,000, are we about 2.5%, Dave?
Yeah.
And
Yes,
we
sir.
definitely do need 2 patrol cars for the police. Both cars are needed.
Was that
Yep, that's part of our annual replacement program.
Rich, I thought a couple years ago, we decided to go with the Chevy Tahoes, and they were supposed to have a longer life expectancy. Are they replacing the Tahoes? Which ones are we replacing? Because that was how it was presented to us.
I'd have to see what vehicles are being replaced. But the selection of a Tahoe versus another vehicle has not changed our long-term replacement program.
No. My point is the idea was to go to the Tahoes because we get more life expectancy out of the vehicle. Are we replacing Tahoes or replacing something else? And have they?
Okay, Eric, I'd have to go back and take a look and see which ones those are replacing.
Okay.
But again, regardless, it doesn't really change the number of vehicles in a given year that you have to replace.
But if these vehicles last longer, why would we need
But
to
I
be?
can't say that they last
Okay.
longer. It's usually based on, it's usually based on mileage, and actually that is a kind of a proxy for engine hours that they run.
Right.
Yeah, it's not miles, it's engine hours.
Yeah.
What
So
is
that's
the,
looked at.
Rich, are they replacing all the handguns of officers? What's the $13,000 for? Is that for something new, or what is that?
It is a replacement of the stock of duty weapons that we have with new handguns, I believe that are 9mm, whereas right now we have 357s.
Richard,
The 357 cartridge is difficult to find. It's actually been on back order at some points this year, and the other cartridge is more expensive. The other cartridge is the same one you would use for some of our other weapons. So there's other reasons to replace it and change, and this includes a sellback of the current handgun.
Okay, thank you. One other question. The body worn cameras, are we getting any subsidy from the state to offset
Yeah,
that cost?
weren't there
That was my
grants
next
for that? Richard, weren't
We
there grants
are-
for the body cameras?
The state is going to be making money available as we're putting together the draft capital plan. It was unsure. We were unsure as far as when exactly that money would be made available, or the certainty of that money being made available. But yes, that may be an item that can be removed as we get some clarity on that and the grant process the state is going to implement.
Now, I
Now we're
know,
ordering 12 body cams. That means, I didn't realize that the police shared them.
Basically, as I understand it, you want to outfit one whole shift and have another set for the next shift ready to go. So you're swapping them out every 12 hours.
and the reason why I asked, or we're asking about the body cams, and I know the state has a very unique way of getting around new programs they have to pay for. Because the state will say, oh no, we're just expanding a current program. There is no current program on body cams, so they should pay for the whole thing.
That's correct. Not all towns have body cams, not all police forces. Some do, some don't. And I thought this came from the Attorney General.
Can we get some clarity on the use of body cams and who pays for them?
Yeah. Because that would be another $38,000 we could take out.
Right.
Rich, or David, if we were to spend the $38,000 on body cameras now, just to get them, can we still use the grant money to offset that cost down the road, or do you have to wait till we have the grant in hand to
I
purchase
wouldn't.
it?
So we would be able to offset the money. So if we took it out of surplus and we got a grant, we would put it right back into surplus.
Okay.
And grant
So
has
you
some
would do it as
idea
an
of
offset.
bring money into the town.
Say that again, Linda?
I'm sorry,
I
you
said
broke up
grant has
there?
some ideas on how we could bring money into the town.
Yes,
We'll talk about that at the council meeting.
yes. It's on the agenda.
The keyless entry system, I mean, seems like it's pretty expensive.
Don't we have that already, the fobs?
It's
This
$25,000. I mean, that seems like it's a lot.
Well, I don't know.
Where are you
We
looking at?
have it installed in Borough Hall. Fire companies and the current allotment that was already funded will cover the DPW. This is an additional allotment to allow us to expand that to other facilities, including eventually the rec shed, and replace the system that they currently use.
So what we have now, we could go to all those buildings with the same one?
No, not right now,
Oh.
not in total yet. This is kind of like a phase 2 for the program.
But it'll be the same key we have.
Correct.
Well, and so if I have the key to the rec shed, I could get into Borough Hall?
Yeah.
Only if it's coded that way.
Okay,
You-
that's
So
you
what
Russell,
could-
you could.
Right.
A rec commissioner, their key fob would not be coded to allow them with access to Borough Hall or DPW or any of the other buildings.
And what about senior center?
Whatever you
same
want
thing.
programmed.
It-
You get a program previous, so you know who gets what key.
No,
and
I'm
where it's
asking,
programmed.
does our key now work for the senior center?
No, because the senior center does not yet have the keyless system
Okay.
in it. Eventually it would. And so the access is programmed per user for
Yeah.
what they need.
Yeah, the problem was several years ago when we identified this, there was no cohesive system for access for all the borough buildings. So the idea was, let's make it even across the board. Even the coaches are having problems, as Russ can attest to, getting into the rec equipment, the rec shed, and everything else like that. And they had the key expensive. The keys are very expensive to replace because there's some microchip on it. So the idea was put a card key in system that works across the town and unify everything and be done with it.
But if you get assigned one of these fobs and you lose it, you should be responsible to pay for a new one if it's that expensive.
No, Linda, they were breaking.
Oh,
Yeah.
The fobs themselves, like the fob you were issued,
Right.
is actually not that expensive.
Oh.
And the nice thing is if we don't get it back, you just lock out the user that shouldn't have access anymore, and it's a security feature for our facilities.
got it.
Michael, can you re-engage my screen share? I got kicked off the network.
Yes.
Are you back in?
I am back. The computer kicked me off too. Thank you.
The senior center AV system that is being replaced, is that to replace it so we could do more meetings in the senior center like this, socially distanced? Because I know that was a location we were looking at to go back in person months ago. We
I'd
decided
be
not to
very,
do that.
you're right. I'd be very happy to meet in the senior center.
So is that what
Right.
that replacement is about, to do something like that? Because 25,000 sounds like a lot of money.
The main issue with the AV system is the current one is original to the building, about 30 years old. Becomes more and more of a maintenance issue. But to your point, yes, this would be more of a state-of-the-art system that would better enable presentations, remote meetings, and the like. One of the things you have on the agenda tomorrow night is a version of this system, a little bit more high-end version than what we were looking to fund here, that we're applying for a grant through the Community Development Block Grant Program. They have a second round of COVID funding because we think that there's certainly value in this system to enable that sort of remote presentation, remote learning capability for the center and with our seniors.
So there's a chance this could be funded through a grant.
Yes, we are applying for a grant, COVID related, that would actually fund that item.
So Rich, in regards to that, so if we're using that center for council meetings, that is an element of the grant for applying for the money then, correct?
Right now, we cannot, under the DLGS guidelines, we cannot use the senior center for council meetings.
Why?
Under the way that we were proposing to do it. There may be some interim guidance as we reopen that allows for that, but right now we can't do that.
All right, well, let's move on here before you are blocked out again.
So moving on to the water utility. There are three revenue streams for the water utility: operating surplus, water rents, and water miscellaneous. Rents and miscellaneous are going to remain flat. No change anticipated to any of the rates there. We are anticipating a higher amount of surplus utilized. The biggest piece of that's going to close out some funding for some completed projects back in 2006 and 2007 that somehow missed being part of the last bond sale, and that we really can't go out and finance for now because they were completed so long ago. We do have a surplus available that we've been building the last couple of years in the water utility, so paying for that will fit within, you know, what we can do from a surplus utilization point of view. It'll take our surplus fairly far down in the water utility, but it's something that we've got to do to pay for these projects.
You said 2006. Can you just expand on that a little bit? Was it missed? What happened?
So talking to Steve Rogut, who's our bond counsel, he came on just after that, and whoever the CFO, I think there was CFO transition, there was bond counsel transition, and an auditor transition or challenge, that between the three things changing, I think we got to, oops, we just didn't catch the two water projects in terms of that bond in 2015. Those projects wouldn't have been completely paid for when we did the 2005 bond, so they would have rolled into the 215 and they got missed. It's an oops.
Okay.
I'm going to see if I can get that.
On the appropriation side, we've got the salaries and wages going up slightly. That's including a half-year staffing increase for the water utility. Our OE, our utilities, insurance, most of the other items are remaining fairly flat from an appropriation standpoint. Capital is going up mostly to offset that expense on the old projects. We also have the PFOA, which is a new requirement by the state for the amount of fluorides, I believe, that are in the water. One of our wells is at a level where we have to begin treating it. So that's in this year's budget. This is a lease to purchase kind of deal to address that particular issue. On the capital side, we've got tank repainting. We've got general water improvements. This is taking care of any valves or meters or, you know, things that are in the road that we have to replace as far as ongoing maintenance. We have funding of the 0607 we talked about, and then water main replacements in the pleasure land area that are part of the ongoing infrastructure maintenance and repair based upon the Water Quality Act. So everything here is fully funded. We do have the cash to pay for all these, and we'll be, you know, looking to do those as far as this year's water project. No increase to rents, no decrease to service.
The painting of the tank, that's a necessity?
Yeah, it's something that needs to be ongoing. You know, it's been planned. We've been building surplus each year to pay for that, right? Okay. So it's been in. We didn't do any capital projects last year so that we could have full funding to do that this year.
Okay.
And David, you said we're replacing the $165,000 to the water surplus?
That's on the sewer side, so we'll get to that one in a sec.
We're going to sewer. That's next page.
Let's
That's
wait.
the next one. Right, so this is pretty flat in terms of what we're looking to do in terms of rents and things on the water side.
Rich, the water main replacement, is it the same project we're getting a CDBG grant for?
No, that's last year's or 2 years ago water main replacement we had in the budget. So that all would be offsetting some of that
Okay,
funding. We would apply for another one for this round of funding, hopefully offset some of this 250.
very good.
If you recall the presentation we made a year and a half or so ago about the New Jersey Water Quality Act, if we had to replace our infrastructure in terms of the number of miles over the 75 years they want us to, we should be spending about between $600,000 and $800,000 a year on water main replacement. So over time, we've got to eventually build up our capacity to get there. This is a start, to take care of the stuff that is most severely needed based upon the analysis we did of our infrastructure a year or so ago.
Okay, thank you.
On the sewer utility, we're actually looking to decrease the amount of operating surplus that will be included in this year's budget. Historically, we've utilized about $25,000 a year. We increased that a couple years ago to deal with the ACO penalties that we were anticipating, since we're going to be funding that, and that's that sewer miscellaneous line you see there. Since we'll be funding that out of the current fund surplus, we don't need to keep that utilization as high. The sewer rents will remain flat, no change, and the budget, is up accordingly. Just as an aside, we did not replenish any surplus this year from the revenue budget in sewers. We do not have the ability to collect on tax sale or doing shutoffs, so our collection rate for sewer and water is actually down quite a bit, especially on the sewer side. So we're seeing the effect of the executive order, which doesn't allow us to do any enforcement of utility collection. The current law that is before.
Sorry.
They still owe that money,
Orange and
right?
Rockland sent out a copy of a letter. Orange and Rockland sent out a copy of a letter saying that, it was, even though you're not required to pay this bill, really you should, and maybe you should make arrangements with us and we could make a payment schedule because you're going to be responsible for this at the end of this.
Yes.
So, can we send a letter similar to that, or is that not allowed?
So the state is going to require us on the next bill probably that we send out to include some general information about this. We have to tell them that for 18 months following the end of the emergency, they do not have to pay, or there's no penalty, no interest, no shutoffs, no anything for the next 18 months on the utility.
18
We also will
months
include
after?
18 months is the current
That's not
legislation.
counting yet, the 18 months?
Yes.
Yeah, but
Now-
so now we have to tell them that, but could we add saying,
Yes.
it's a good idea to make some kind of plan with us and then so you don't get stuck later and maybe we'll get some payments.
So the space on our bill is about 2 inches by 4 inches to include general messaging. So what we're including on that is a connection to our website, which says for payment, other payment options, and if things are available, go to our website, and our website will have a full description of everything we can do, everything the state can do, and all the other things that are available to people who need support paying their utilities.
Okay.
If you thought we needed to, we could do a separate mailing, out to everybody, but there's, a fairly significant cost associated with that. We have, some 4,000 line items a mailing's going to cost us a couple $1,000s, to do.
Yeah. Okay.
Go at the web email.
I think that's another good idea. I hadn't really thought about that. We've got a variety of sources of emails that we've collected. Maybe we can consolidate some of them, Michael, into a larger mailing. We can do it on our social media and do some of that push as well.
Or maybe
I'll work with Michael on doing something
Yeah, we
with
have
that.
some means to do that.
Good idea, Pat.
Except the seniors that don't have access.
Yep.
Okay.
So on the appropriation side, our OE looks like it's going down. We're actually moving that $84,000 to a separate line. So you can see that we put 168,000, 2 years worth of the ACO penalties into the budget so that we could replenish surplus, this year. So I'll have that 168,000 that comes into the sewer utility. 84,000 will go back to the state. The other 84,000 will replenish the surplus we used last year. Most of the remaining line items in the budget are fairly flat. If you take out that 84,000, the budget is about where it was last year.
Okay.
And we have no new capital projects planned on the sewer utility.
That's it?
That's all we
That's it.
got. That's our story. We're sticking to it.
You're done, huh?
Well, just let me say thank you to Rich and David for all the work you've done on the budget, and thank you in advance for what you're going to do to look forward, looking into the suggestions that we've made.
Thanks, Russ.
And really thank you for thinking forward, and multiple years forward. And I really liked how you looked back too, and you explained how things that we did in the past have affected us going even forward. Never mind now. And so we have to think about that when we're making if we're going to make more cuts to this budget. But thank you guys for what you've done.
Great job.
You're welcome.
Yeah. I just have one question. Rich, have we made any progress? We've got that Valley View property that the borough owns, and there's also that other lot at the top of, I believe it's Chuckanut or Andrew, where the old water tower used to be, as far as getting those, possibly selling those, getting those back on the books, having generate tax revenue?
Yeah, we had gone back and forth internally here because both of those have some infrastructure on them, about whether we should work to remove that before marketing it. I think the kind of concept now is to not do that and just put it back on. I had a conversation last month with Brian about the process to move that forward. I have to get him some property data on that, and I think now is a good time to get those on the market. So that is something that we've been working on recently, and I would think that this spring we would be in a position to do an auction or advertise those for sale.
I mean, if there was never a time to do it, this is it with what's going on with the real estate market. Especially that one piece of property is very big up there at what is that, Chickasaw at the top? That's a very large lot up there.
Manitou.
Man, it could be 2 lots.
Yeah, it's big.
Yeah.
By the way, thank you. It was a wonderful job. This is the best
Great job.
budget explanation I've got since I've been on the council. Thank you.
I said it's nice to have these packets rather than these big books we used to get.
Yeah.
Well, we figured we would, try to save some trees, make the Shade Tree Commission happy.
Yes.
And just so you're aware, there will be some more, narrative coming. I do, intend to provide you with some more in-depth information on the changes in appropriations. So, when you're looking at all the numbers and you see a change for $2,000 or $3,000 or $4,000 one way or the other, that you have an understanding of what's behind that and why. And you'll be seeing that shortly.
So anybody who's listening, remember this is a draft. This is the first draft.
Right.
And as you heard during the meeting, that a lot of the councilmen had asked our CFO to go back and tweak some of the numbers and see where we could do some finesse. So are we continuing or we're opening to the public?
The only other thing is the other item that you got in the material was the large package in terms of the detailed charts. It just, has all of that stuff that we put into the budget, the 4-year projection based upon some key factors that we look at around contract and CPI. It also has 4 years of actuals, so we can go look past and see what we've spent. So just so you know, as you're looking at that, that's where you got a lot more of the detail that builds into the budget. Other than that, Mayor, yes, if there's nothing else from the mayor and council, we are good to open.
All right, so Michael, is there anybody from the public?
Mayor, I see no one here from the public.
But I'll
Really?
still entertain a motion to open to the public.
So moved.
Public.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, Michael, still no one?
We
And
have
we
no
put
one
this in
here.
prime time.
I'm
Motion
sorry,
to
what?
close?
So
Second.
moved.
All in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Remember, this was a draft, so take your papers and start looking at it and reviewing. So at
What-
this
To
point,
adjourn.
a motion to adjourn.
Quick question. When are we going to have the information back for our next meeting? Any idea, time-wise?
David?
Yeah, so I think we can have something by end of
Yeah.
Wednesday.
All right. Yeah, and then give us a couple days.
Couple days, we'll get this out. You've asked for 3 or 4 specific line items. We'll take those, we'll put them into the projection model, we take them out, we put other items back in to offset them in the future, and we'll be able to say this is the impact of this year's, what it saves in terms of $1 per resident, and then what we think if you put it back in and when it'll have the reverse impact.
Just make sure we get that pie shape, that beautiful pie you made for us.
Motion to adjourn.
You got it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. The next meeting of the mayor and council will be this Wednesday night. Remember, there is no executive session. So you don't come on until 7:30.
So might we meet a little earlier just to go through the changes that we're talking about here?
We could, would you like
I'm
to
okay
go
with that.
7?
Sounds good.
The question is, we haven't advertised.
Oh, we didn't
Yeah.
advertise it.
Right.
Um,
Okay.
All right.
All right, goodbye.